Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we've just got a devlog. No update this week because we've got something extra special coming next Friday. So I thought I would take the opportunity today, especially because of the fact that we're about 3 whole months into the year, to do a sort of roadmap update. Now that we've shipped some major updates and features so far this year, talk about what is going to be coming to the game over the next 3 months. So to start out with that, it's actually appropriate that we are standing here in our indoor range, because this scene is one of the ones that is finally going to get some much needed love. Don't worry, for those of you who are like, no, I don't want this, I've spent years in this scene, I don't want it to change, I will be keeping an unmodified, fully functional version of this range. So just in case any of the changes that I'm about to talk about freak you out and you don't want them, don't worry, this will be kept exactly as is in the Legacy Scenes section, just because I love it so much. But, so, what is changing? Well, there's a bunch of, quality of life improvements I want to do, and aesthetic improvements. The aesthetic improvements and sort of structural ones, I'd like to push the back wall out more to about 50 meters for better practice. Obviously, clean up some of this geo and do a better job light mapping. There's actually a few, artifacts that are visible there. I don't like those jagged lines there. There's just a missing section of wall back here. And I would just like to make it a slightly more detailed space while making sure that it still runs really, really, really fast, just because I know a lot of people like to pile up dozens of firearms in here. So on top of that, the main reason I want to change this relates to sort of usability of the scene and quality of life stuff, making this actually react to sort of laser pointing and having a bunch more options. We've been actually slowly working on this year a new target system for our targets that basically will allow you to select the type from a bunch of lists. It makes bullet holes look a lot better. I'm going to make scoring, which is just like a UI component over a plane, have a bit more sort of tracking options for you. But yeah, the whole idea is just if you enjoy standing here and plinking, just making all of the little core systems for it work better. Your rest here will actually be height adjustable, and it will save the height. So if you're the sort of the person who likes to sit and shoot, you'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to adjust the height of the target to match, probably, as well as just remove this entirely. So yeah, so that's what's going to be going on for the indoor range. Let's jump over now to a scene that some of you have already seen screenshots of, and some of you found, have seen more of, that is a preview of the next take and hold scene. So, welcome to the beginnings of what is going to be the new take and hold scene, which is currently named War is for Weiners. I know a lot of you have been asking for a long time for an outdoor environment to play take and hold in that has a large variety of influences and combat topologies and such. So this project is to answer those desires, as well as a whole bunch of things that I want to play around with design-wise. The way to think about this level is that it's fairly large. It's about 300 or so meters on each dimension. It is emphasized pretty much entirely around outdoor play. There's still indoor areas of it for traversing around tunnels, supply rooms, stuff that's in the standard take and hold level, but all the holds will take place outdoors for reasons that will make sense later on this quarter. But anyway, let's jump on over here. The the level is going to be divided into a bunch of sub areas that each have a different sort of combat topological theme. This one is called the Village, and as you can see, is a whole bunch of sort of ruined buildings. I don't have ladders and such up, so it's actually a little difficult to traverse a lot of it. And you're going to be defending this from a bunch of different vectors during a hold. One of the advantages of doing an outdoor level is that instead of just having, 2 or 3 narrow apertures for enemies to come in, they'll be able to come in from a lot more different areas, and so it should really open up Take and Hold as a mode, especially for those of you who want to be sort of moving around a lot more. You'll also notice that this is actually at the point, distance-wise, where the travel time of things like SMG rounds really matters. So in the case of, say, this UMP with 45, we're getting pretty significant, enough bullet drop to matter, even at this distance, and enough travel time. At this distance, this makes us feel like the Swag 12 HE rounds. Wonderful. So yeah, I don't want to show you a whole ton of this yet, primarily because most of the areas of it are still unfinished. Lighting is still a little glitchy for held objects. As you can see here, there's still going to be sort of hold rooms, supply rooms, as you're used to, that sort of flow in and out of this space, but it's gonna be a biggin'. So I'm looking forward to it. And you might be asking, well, this is a very big space. Are we still going to be shooting those tiny targets in this space? No, but I'm going to wait to tell you how that is going to change. As I said, till later this quarter. Trust me, it will be worth it. Anywho, let's jump back out of VR and talk about the other segments of what's going to be coming in the next couple months. Yo! So as you might have guessed with me talking about the indoor range, one of the things that I really want to focus on over the next couple months is Sandbox play, which obviously I haven't spent a whole ton of time on lately. I've sort of neglected it, or at least appear to have, but we've actually had a whole bunch of other things going on in parallel to support it that don't make sense to release sort of piecemeal because of the fact that they're all sort of plugging into some new systems, some of which are rendering related, some of which are like data management and saving certain types of data, that it doesn't make sense to release that content without the supporting system. So once the actual code work on all of that is done, there'll be this huge dump of content to go with it that is actually going to be relevant to all Sandbox scenes. I'm not going to talk about one aspect of that, but one of the other aspects relates to bot spawning. I know a lot of you have been in the like, hey, can I just spawn some SOSIGs to play with in X scene? Especially the old arenas like the mini arena and things like that. I have been working on and trying to figure out the best way to make a sort of universal configurable SOSIG spawner that allows you to not just spawn things, but also save some of the settings. So if you end up setting up a way that you enjoy playing, like I select these specific SOSIGs and they spawn, from that point and that point, and they try to run over to here, the ability for you to configure that and save that. And that's a harder problem from a software UX standpoint than you might think. UI stuff in VR is way harder than doing it on a flat screen. But that's part of the goal, and that's one of the reasons, if you're like, why does the mini arena just have the old bots? Why does the arena proto have the old bots? The reason I haven't touched those scenes is I don't want to just like make a bunch more idiosyncratic solutions for them the way I have in the past, but make one that I can just sort of lay directly onto many of the scenes all at once. So that is still in progress in parallel. In terms of non-SOSIG related stuff, we've got some targets that are coming, including a couple that are dynamic and took way more work than one might think to make compelling and, I don't want to say realistic, dynamic. As I said, it'll make more sense later this quarter when you see it. On top of that, in terms of Meat Fortress stuff, as I mentioned with the spy stuff that just arrived, I'm going to be slowly filling out as a sort of drip feed alternate ammos, some alternate weapon types, with the idea that as I fill that expressivity space out, it will make for being able to do a Meat Fortress take and hold character that's actually interesting. Because right now with just the stock equipment, it would be like, well, there's that weapon would always be the starting weapon, and there'd be a couple things that you would upgrade to, and half the weapons, if you just gave the player, it's sort of like game over, too easy. So I want to address that design-wise by filling out stuff that you could get, in the hopes that once I add a few more variables into the system, it could make for a more compelling progression. Because TF2's equipment was designed for a multiplayer shooter, not a single player against bot equipment progression style experience. But I think I can plug enough things along that power curve to make it interesting and fun to play with. Especially because I just want to hear more of those Sosig lines in another context. And then lastly, obviously, guns, what is coming. Obviously, the first part of this year, the focus had been on turn of the century firearms. I really wanted to fill out stuff specifically to make the, Kyle Wiener Calico take and hold character compelling and have enough equipment there. I've hit that point, and so I'm going to be switching back to modern stuff for a while, filling out a couple of the categories that don't have as many firearms in them as I like, as well as a couple countries of origin that I haven't managed to get to yet. So that is the goal. So yeah, as I said, lastly, next week, have something super special for you folks on Friday. Hopefully, y'all will have played Half-Life Alyx, had it just like ruin every single other VR game for you because it will be so disgustingly pretty. And then started to get over that and want to boot back up creaky old H3 again. So if for all of you hanging out in quarantine, I hope I can continue to provide entertainment and a barrel of laughs for all of you. So anywho, I will see you all next week. Peace.